Hi guys, Geek64 here, and today we're talking about Dark Phoenix.
Oh, I can't control it.
I'm dead. No. In short, this movie is not great. Yeah. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to why this movie's not good. You will leave disappointed, but you will leave well rested because you'll probably fall asleep while watching this movie. It's that boring. Hope you guys are ready for the truth.
Geek.
True. 64.
Geek. Truth. Geek.
6-4. Oh, shit.
All right, as I said in my opening, there's not a whole lot of good to talk about. This is not a good movie. I will talk about a couple good things first, and then we'll get to the bad, because most of this is just going to end up being a rant, but not an angry rant, just a disappointment rant. That's what this is going to end up probably being. All right, let's talk about something good first. All right, what's good? The first like 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, X-Men are being superheroes, which is something we haven't seen a whole lot of in the actual X-Men movies. It's cool. They go into space to save some astronauts. I actually really like that scene. This is a good setup for the movie. Unfortunately, everything from that point on is either boring or terrible. It's all downhill after that opening sequence when they're in space and the Phoenix Force is introduced, which is not called the Phoenix Force. It's just a mist. It looks like the cosmic storm Fantastic Four were hit by in the 2005 movie. So other than the beginning, the end fight scene, it wasn't completely terrible. There were some aspects to it I enjoyed. I actually had to look it up, and all that final scene is all reshoots. So, and it feels like it. It feels like a different movie than what you saw the whole rest of the time, because the whole rest of the movie just feels like a super low budget TV movie. Yeah, that's the best way to sum it up. So in the end, that's all the good things I have to say. The opening was all right. The end fight was not terrible. And the actors do what they can for the most part. Most of the actors do what they can with what they're given. They just aren't given anything to do. Okay. So let's go ahead and segue into what's terrible about Dark Phoenix, because there's plenty of it. I hope you guys are ready. All right, let's start with the acting. Okay. As I said, the acting, most of the actors try and do what they can with what they have. But the majority of the acting feels either forced, just kind of uncomfortable, or phoned in. Like, nobody really cared about this movie while they were making it. Like, majority of the people in this movie knew that what they were doing was not a good movie. They were just acting out the motions. And I can't believe they just completely wasted McAvoy and Fassbender here. They have done a great job as Magneto and Professor X over these last few movies, and they're just completely wasted here. Completely wasted. This whole movie is basically a waste. It's a waste of your time and a waste of potential for the source material. That story right there, okay? All right, so what they do with Xavier, they make him this self-centered, vain character who picks up the bat phone to talk to the president, and they make it out to where he doesn't care about his team. They try and make him into an a-hole, and then you have Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique lecturing him and saying he's a terrible person, and all this nonsense. They really put a lot of work into trying to make you hate Charles Xavier in this movie, and you don't buy it for a second. James McAvoy as Charles Xavier is acting not really like Charles Xavier that we've known throughout all of these other movies. Granted, he was in a depression mode in Days of Future Past, which is a 10 million times better movie. Go watch Days of Future Past if you want a good X-Men movie. But how he acts in this movie is just they work really hard to make you hate him, and you really don't. You just don't feel like who you're seeing is Professor X, and you feel like everybody else is just being a-hole to him just because the plot demands it. So yeah, that was pretty terrible. So the script is also terrible. Most of the movie is a rinse and repeat formula of the same thing. It literally goes in this order.
Oh, I can't control it.
Then something bad happens. I'm dead. And then she runs away. No. It's just a rinse and repeat of the same thing. Let's see that again.
Oh, I can't control it.
I'm dead. No. Okay, I'm not going to subject you to that anymore. Basically that multiple times. That's pretty much the whole movie. She can't control it. Something bad happens. She goes to a new place. She can't control it. Something bad happens. She goes to a new place. It's just a rinse and repeat. Same thing. It's the most boring storytelling. This is just the most boring movie I've seen in a long time. Just to give you a little background real quick. I had a Red Bull right before I went to go see this movie. Okay. I was ready to go. Now, I knew the critic scores were really low. I think when I went and I saw it yesterday, and I think the critic score was like 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I don't subscribe to the Rotten Tomatoes score. I think it's a whole BS, and I think Rotten Tomatoes as a website is just gone downhill and capitulated to the actual companies and manufacturing the scores. But Disney doesn't care about Dark Phoenix. They're the ones who own 20th Century Fox now, so why would they have any reason to try and hide the score? So that's why you're getting this low score, because nobody cares about it. So I went in with pretty low expectations. Now, I talked about the trailer. I talked about the poster. The initial trailer had me worried, but I saw some potential in it. I love the initial poster that they released with Sophie Turner as the Phoenix. It looked like they were going to go back to what the Phoenix story was about, which involves space, because the Phoenix Force comes from space. But and they kind of did, but they really didn't. So going into this, I drank a Red Bull. I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm ready to make it through this movie. And I still almost fell asleep. Seriously, the Phoenix storyline is so great. You had the Shi'ar Empire. You had the Gladiator, the guy, this dude with the mohawk, that guy. You could have had, imagine seeing this guy in a movie. Like that design, it would have worked in perfectly with the 80s decade that they were going for with Apocalypse. They literally show Genosha. Okay. Genosha is one of the greatest storylines in X-Men. Obviously Phoenix is also a great storyline, to be completely butchered, but Genosha could have been a whole separate thing. Genosha is basically an island that Magneto runs, that the UN recognizes as a sovereign state. And it's a mutant sanctuary, okay? And there's so much cool, like, political stuff you could do, like Game of Thrones style stuff you could do with Genosha. And instead, we just get Genosha is this little tiny island, like, off the coast, like, right next to Disney World, with a bunch of busted trailers that look like they're straight out of, like, Ready Player One or something. Complete waste. This movie's a complete waste. It's like they just don't care anymore, and you don't care anymore. And there's also terrible effects. Like some of the effects were all right. Like they were pretty good. But the majority of them, yeah, they just like this whole movie felt like a TV movie. Like I said before, it feels of that quality. Like, and that's an insult to like Luke Cage and Daredevil, because Luke Cage and Daredevil are awesome shows. Like this is probably on par with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like this feels like this movie could be an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. It feels like you paid box office price to go watch a TV movie. And as I said, this is just a waste of material for this story. This is the second time around that they've done this story, and the guy who directed this movie and wrote this movie is the same writer who wrote X3. Okay, think about that for a second. This guy wrote X3, and they gave him the directorial power over the remake, and it feels like it. He literally rehashed multiple things from X3. X3 is generally considered to be the worst X-Men movie if you don't count X-Men Origins Wolverine. Okay. I don't like X3. I think it is a bad movie. Okay. I would rather rewatch X3 again than watch Dark Phoenix, because at least in X3, there's some fun to be had in the movie. There's things happening in the movie. There's some scenes that happen that you actually remember and care about watching again. The movie as a whole is not very good, but that's a better movie than Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix is just boring, bland mess. It's just really, it's boring. It's boring. There's literally a dude with dreads that fights with his dreads. He throws his dreads out at people and takes them out. That's his fighting style. That was like the funniest thing in the movie. The guy who fought with dreads. That Quicksilver's another character, just completely wasted. In Days of Future Past, when they introduced Quicksilver and they had that if you could catch time in a bottle scene, okay, when he's running around. That scene, most people like, there was lots of great scenes in Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is a much better movie. Go watch Days of Future Past, please. Okay, look. All right, so these two movies right here, okay, X2 and Days of Future Past. These are the best X-Men movies by leaps and bounds. Go watch either of these. Go rewatch either of these. Save your money. Don't give it to Dark Phoenix because it does not deserve your time and your money, and you'll never get it back, and you will forget about everything that happens in Dark Phoenix. Days of Future Past, way better movie. X2, way better movie. Top two, please go see either of these. But, as I said, Quicksilver, completely wasted. Completely wasted. Like, he had the best scene in Days of Future Past. He had a great scene in Apocalypse. And, they just sideline him. The whole movie, he's out of commission. I almost forgot he existed because he just got put out of commission towards the beginning of the movie, and you never see him again. What a complete waste. It's like, oh, well, his powers are too OP, so we're just going to sideline him, I guess. That was their reasoning. I guess they couldn't have Quicksilver go up against a guy who throws his dreads around as an attack. Honestly, what Disney should have done was just shutter this movie, okay? This movie is supposed to be released last year. The Disney-Fox merger postponed it. They did some reshoots and all kinds of stuff, and it was moved from summer of last year to February. It was supposed to come out, and now it's coming out here in June. And I just wish they never released it almost, because this is just a subpar end to a great franchise that's had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. The X-Men movies, for the most part, have either been really good or really not. And there's not a whole lot of in-between movies for the X-Men franchise. I'm interested to see what Marvel does with the X-Men franchise. And what Disney should have done was, like I said, just shutter this movie. Just get rid of it. Don't put it out there. Don't spend any money on reshoots like they did. Don't try and salvage this movie. Like, if you want to just throw it out on DVD for hardcore fans if they want to check it out. And, look, I said DVD. Throw it out on Blu-ray, video on demand. Put it up on their streaming service or something like that. Just don't even give it a big budget release because it doesn't deserve it. And that way only hardcore fans, if they want to check it out, they could and be disappointed at home instead of disappointed in the theater. And then that way, they could have taken another shot at the Phoenix story in their own time, in their own X-Men rebooted franchise, which is going to happen at some point. Now, will they do a better job than what Fox has done? Maybe. Honestly, my faith in Marvel is kind of waning at this point as we're exiting out of Endgame and moving on to a further project. So we'll see what happens with it. X-Men, to me, X-Men is what got me into comics. X-Men is what got me into superheroes. The X-Men animated TV show, amazing. That got me into this entire world of comics and superheroes when I was a kid, and I loved it. And X-Men now is just kind of a joke. The comics are terrible. The movies have become progressively terrible. Like I said, Days of Future Past. Logan, I don't count Logan as an X-Men movie, but Logan was amazing. But Logan's not an X-Men movie. It just has Wolverine and Professor X in it, and that's it. It's not an X-Men movie. So to sum it up, Dark Phoenix is a boring movie. It is not a fun movie. You won't care about what's happening. You won't connect with these characters. And you will see a lot of the same rinse and repeat.
Oh, I can't control it.
I'm dead. No. Yeah, you'll see that over and over and over again until the movie finally ends and tries to get you back with a climactic ending, and it doesn't. It doesn't. This whole franchise ends with a big thud. At least with Apocalypse, which was also disappointing. Apocalypse I've rewatched. I own the movie. It's not the greatest movie. It's not the worst X-Men movie. I personally think that X-Men Origins Wolverine will never be topped for the worst X-Men movie. And X3, yeah, I'd probably rewatch Apocalypse before I saw X3, but I definitely rewatch X3 before I see Dark Phoenix. So that's kind of my general X-Men rankings. I was going to do a video on it, but I don't think I really need to. I don't know if I will or not. It doesn't really matter. Dark Phoenix is a boring mess. You will fall asleep during it, and it's an anticlimactic end to the series. That sums up everything you need to know about the Dark Phoenix. Stay at home, rewatch Days of Future Past or X2, or really any of the X-Men movies, because you'll probably have a better time. Better yet, rewatch the X-Men animated show. That was 10 million times better than what you got in Dark Phoenix. Maybe we'll get a proper Dark Phoenix story at some point, but we're not getting it here. Again, I want to thank you guys for sticking around in this video. Thank you, subscribers. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe and comment. Or don't. I'm not a beggar. I'm Geek264, and I'll always tell you the truth.